Welcome to the Rooted Global Village. We'd like to share a short story with you today. You see, Rooted is an organism made up of the many souls who are a part of it. And like any organism, Rooted has a birth story. And like other birth stories, the birth is not the beginning. You see, Rooted's birth story in early 2020 marks a confluence of forces that are both personal to each one of us in the space and also collective. And they have their roots in a much longer, deeper story than a linear timeline could reveal. What is evident is that Rooted was born from desire, where desire here represents what is most longed for, what sparks a fire in our bellies for change. Let me introduce myself. I'm Kareen. My early years were difficult. I lived with feelings of inadequacy and deep-seated shame that traveled through bloodlines. Many of my early experiences fueled the development of survival strategies that allowed me to navigate my world and relationships. And I know I'm not alone. Many of the therapies and healing modalities available to me at the time had only served to reinforce an idea that it was I who was not okay and needed to be different, needed to be fixed, so that I could be quote-unquote normal and find my place in the world. In so many ways, I failed to belong to the world that I knew. I struggled to adapt to the dysfunction in my environment as I continually came up against blocks and barriers to dignity, authenticity, acceptance, and belonging. But there's more to this story. The failure to belong to what is deeply dysfunctional, it turns out, was a gift. There was something else that haunted these early experiences. This knowing deep in my bones, a faith, a trust that this isn't the whole story. Trauma does not alone shape our experience. So too does the resilience, the wisdom, and creativity that we've inherited, and that belongs to being a human being in entangled relationship with the world. You see, it took time to make new sense of an old story that told of my defectiveness, and see that my so-called personal struggles were not individual to me, but were rooted in culture and history. Colombian-American scholar Arturo Escobar refers to something that he calls the one world world. The one world world as an idea offers us a way of thinking about and also giving language to the dominance of Eurocentric modes of being, thinking, and relating. They're rooted in post-Enlightenment modernity, and they become normalized as the way things are. In the one world world, mind is disconnected from the body, and the body is often devalued or reduced to its utility within capitalist economics. In the one world world, the sensuous body and the guidance that it offers us is often dismissed and devalued. And sources of knowledge that come through us in the form of intuition, dreams, and connection with the land, ancestors, the sacred and spirit are delegitimized. The human is extracted from relationship with the more than human world, and so I forget that I am and you are nature, and that the I that is me is entangled with the trillions of organisms and elements and cosmic dust that make up who we are. Synchronicities are reduced to mere coincidence and not the working of forces we cannot measure. And the concepts and labels that we affix to ourselves and others, they limit how we can know and experience each other in relationship. It's Western science that's worshipped in the one world world and deemed the only legitimate way to know something, where rational thought is valued over emotions and emotional intelligence, and the individual and hyper-independence is valued over what is collective and interdependent. Within the one world world, anti-Blackness and indigenous erasure become the foundation on which racialization is born, and bodies are divided and held in relational tension. Even here, there are pockets of resistance and of homecoming, despite the one world world. still ways that we resist dominance and celebrate life. Indeed, tremendous creativity often comes out of oppression as life refuses total capture. And this is not to say that all of it is bad, but as a cultural ethos, it's been concerned with the commodification, exploitation, and devaluation of human and more than human peoples around the globe. It has sought to erase entire groups of people and their knowledges, while devaluing people and experiences that don't align with the one world. This is the flattening of what is in truth a vibrant and dynamic technicolor world. And in the flattening of ourselves and others, authentic relationship is challenged. But we are creative forces in our worlds. And one of the challenges in all of this for us is how we become liberated from the limits on our imagination and our ability to know otherwise and to tell other stories. My own early experiences were a whetstone that served to sharpen a critical consciousness and caused me to question what is often taken for granted in culture. Said another way, I realized that the problem was in the soil, not within me. In the wake of extraordinary experiences, there is a kind of disruption and disorientation in the ways that we're used to being in the world. We've all had such experiences that turn what we think we know on its head, and in the dizziness of those moments, we can feel as if we're without a compass. And it turns out that getting lost can be a liberatory practice. And what if we were to inhabit spaces where that kind of disorientation is valued? Where we can work to build the kind of trust in ourselves and each other to experience this disorientation without danger. Where we can swap stories and find shared resonance, intimacy, trust, and connection, and learn about the ways each of us has in different forms been shaped by the internalization of the one world. And also rediscover where what is indestructible in us still lives. Like an image that's revealed when we each bring a piece of the puzzle to the table, we realize that our stories and lives are entangled, and that each piece serves to tell an important story, a much bigger story than what we might be able to see on our own. To access realms of possibility beyond what we've known, we need experimentation. And Rooted is a space of experimentation. We experiment with the repair of the relational wounds we've experienced and the transformation of patterns that we've developed. Experimentation for us is speculative, messy, and not well evidenced, inviting the self in as a critical site of knowledge making alongside others. In the process, we challenge the rigidity of harmful cultural forms and rigid identity structures and the one world. What remains is something akin to the pluriverse, articulated best by the Zapatistas as, quote-unquote, a world in which many worlds fit. We do all of this in order to remember, revitalize, and reconnect with wisdom, maturity, agency, and the sensual body. We act in ways that resist modernity's grip on imagination, and in so doing, we undermine its project. And instead of demolishing the structure, so to speak, we reclaim and redirect our energy and attention from it to cultivate the soil out of which new worlds grow. It's within this ethos of experimentation that we release perfectionism and learn to embrace mistakes. We embrace a slow philosophy. We relinquish a hold on fixed and knowable outcomes. We trust a deeper story unfolding that we're a part of without knowing where it starts or where it ends. We play, we sing, we dance, and we make art. And in the process, we reclaim a shared wisdom about what it means to be creative agents in our worlds. And all the while, we are planting seeds for future worlds. The ability to birth something new requires us to stretch beyond known borders, beyond the neat lines of maps that have shaped our lives, and in the process, we risk uncharted waters. We don't have a map in Rooted that we're using to navigate this unknown, but we are not without a navigation system. We believe that it's in our ability to hang out at the edge places where the familiar meets the wildlands of the unknown that we encounter new possibilities. And not so that we can nail a new thesis to the church door, but so that we may follow new questions. And we navigate this uncertainty by accessing bodily intelligence and wisdom. And we don't do it alone. We create spaces for grief, joy, wisdom, intimacy, wonder, surprise, and play. And as a space of response to a world fragmented by hierarchies and supremacies, we venture into the unknown, guided by values of reverence, relationship, humility, and respect. We are an assemblage of people in Rooted, actively questioning and experimenting with what unleashes and moves life energy, and what teaches us to trust ourselves and each other on the way to building community and dreaming new futures. Each one of us knows desire, like the spark that ignites a flame for personal and collective transformation, and each one of our experiences, born from peace or born from struggle, have contributed to it. What is the gift that your experiences have revealed? And what wants to come through that could serve your personal and our collective transformation? And are you curious and ready to do this in the company of dedicated others? That's all yours to discover in Rooted.